So today we are going to discuss the immutable data types. That means the constant data types which we don't really want to initialize again and again. That means the value should remain constant. So let's just first directly switch on to Visual Studio 2019. I'm creating a new project and it's going to be a console application C Sharp. I'm renaming it to immutable types. Next. .NET 5.0 is the target framework I've selected here. There's a reason behind it. I'll let you know after some time. So, immutable, as I've told you, immutable means something that's not changing, that means something that's constant. So, basic idea behind doing it is here we have a namespace, a class here, and within a class I'm going to define a property. For ease I'm going to define all integer type properties here, and here we have set and get with it. That means we can assign a value to it, we can get a value from it, right? So here I'm going to create an object of this program class. Before moving on to actually the immutable types, I would like to show you that in C Sharp 9.0 .NET 5, we have a feature where we really simplify this new keyword. That means earlier we used to write program, its object name, new program, right? We could have even done it with the don't actually without actually specifying it as program type. We could have declared a var here. That would be a no problem. So now we can directly write new here, and I'm removing the program here. Even this way we can initialize it now. This has been simplified in C Sharp 9.0. So if what if I just write var here? So that this would actually mean that we something that's not known is assigned to something that's not known. So obviously there will be an error. Either we can specify a type here, right? Or we can specify a var here and new program. This was actually done earlier too, but now we can actually define the type here, and we can just remove this from here. And see, what if I even navigate to this? I'm clicking on new, pressing F12, and my cursor has came to this program. That means we are initializing an object of program class. So this is much easier and a pretty good way to do it now. So I'm going to access from this the property, my property. We can really assign it a value, and we can even access this value. So like if I'm printing it on my console, we can access it, we can assign it. And at the last, let me just add console.readline. Right. Actually I'm gonna remove it and I'm gonna run it. Oh yes, I don't really need to write that console.readline here because it's automatically showing press any key to close this window. That means the screen doesn't disappears itself. So 100 is printed here, quite a simple program. Now I'm gonna make it as only a get property. That means I'm removing set from here. That means I've made this property as immutable, and you can really see that I cannot assign a value to it. So what we have is we have to declare a property or a member, and then we can initialize it, or can both can be done together. So this is the declaration where we are defining that it's a public type, it's an integer type, and it is a get property only. So this is declaration. Here I am initializing it, where I'm actually assigning a value to it. So if I remove the set, that means I will not be able to set a property. I will not be able to assign a value to it anymore. So we can really access it because it's a get, but we cannot really assign a value to it. So obviously that doesn't mean that we'll not be able to assign a value to it. We will be able to. Let me just show you. But before that, let me just change the property name. This is get only now. We can only get from it. And I'm going to rename, and this simply changes this property name here too. So when can I actually assign a value to it? It's at the time when the constructor is defined. So let me create a constructor here, and I'm going to assign a value here. If I would have done this here, that was showing an error. But when I'm doing it in a constructor, that's super fine, because at the runtime, when this object will be initialized, at the time the same data type will be initialized, and it will remain constant throughout the runtime. So that's not an issue now, because we have initialized it once and it becomes immutable. That means we cannot reinitialize it. So I'm going to show you other several ways we can do this. So let me just copy this for 3 more times. Yes, 3 more times. For the first time, I'm going to create it as a const property, and I'm going to remove this get. I'm getting rid of it. A read-only property. Read-only property. Let me just rename as const so that easy to understand. It has underscore read-only, and this as underscore init. And here I'm going to add init. I'll show you why these errors are here. First of all, I'm going to remove this. We don't need set and get here. So starting from the const keyword, this is showing an error because it's saying a const field requires a value to be provided. It means we need to provide a value here at the time of declaration. Yes, as I told you, this is the declaration of const underscore const keyword, const data. So we have to initialize value at the same moment when we are declaring it. So if I'm assigning it some value, the error has gone. That means const keyword is very adequate to set a value that is very constant. And even we can it said that the basic difference when we ask what's the difference between read only and the const keyword is the read only is a runtime constant and const is a compile time constant. That means if we are not assigning a value to the const, the compiler shows an error. The compiler checks for its initialization. Okay, and the read-only property is also checked at the runtime. The initialization is done at the runtime. So this is the basic main difference when the question is being asked to us at the time of interview or whenever. This is the main difference, that the const is a compile time constant and read-only is a runtime constant. So let's just check out the difference in practical. So we have declared a value here. declared a variable here, we have initialized that variable, and here we have just declared it, and initialization for read only is not a really issue. So can we how can we just assign a value to it? Similar to this, we can say read only is 200, say. That's perfectly fine. And what if I say const? That means we have initialized the const here, but I'm reinitializing it here. So is that okay? Not really. It's showing the left hand side of an assignment must be a variable, property, or indexer. That means really we cannot do this. We can initialize and declare const keyword only once. It will remain the same throughout the application. Or whenever we need to change it, we just need to change it at one place and it will remain same forever. And read only can be obviously initialized at the time of this constructor. When the constructor is created, constructor is basically used to initialize the variables, and that's what it's meant for and it's doing. So we cannot do this. We cannot even not even assign a value here to the const when we cannot even do it in constructor. We cannot also do it here. So what is actually the difference between all of them? Get only is a get property behaving similar like a read only property. The difference is we have the difference in the declaration. We have made it as a get type property, and where we have said a read only keyword is replaced with this get thing. And the constant is when we have to declare and assign a value at just once, and it will remain the same. This becomes immutable, this becomes the immutable, this becomes immutable. And now coming to the init, this is actually the feature of C sharp 9.0 where we declare init, the property as init. This is init-setter. That means we can only initialize this at the time of creating a constructor, or we can do it when the object initialization is done. Yes, the main difference between init, constant, read only is, let me show you. Mm, So, first of all, let's just see, can we access this const keyword with this object created here? The const keyword is the const variable is in program class. So, can we really access it? Program dot underscore const. No, we cannot access it. And let's just see what the error says. Program is a variable but is used like a type. Now let's just see the error. Member program that underscore const cannot be accessed with the instance reference. It cannot be accessed with the instance reference. Qualify if it with the type name instead. The reason behind it is it behaves just like the static keyword. So what if I even access this? Am I able to? I'm not initializing it, I'm just accessing it, getting the property, but I'm not able to, right? So for this is the reason I said it behaves like a static. So what if static properties can be accessed directly by the name? So similarly, this can also be accessed directly by name, but the problem here remains that we cannot assign a value to it. So yes, we need to remove this. We can access it, but we cannot assign it. And now let's just check get only, a get property. Is it accessible with that? Is it? Yes, it is accessible. Mm, So I hope you would have understood the difference between get only and this const. It's just like a static member would be. We cannot directly access it with the instance, but will need to access it with the class name. And this can be used as a normal property. Just the difference is we cannot assign a value to it. We can just get a value from that. So coming to the third one, it's read only. Let's just check. Let me just create a copy for it again for three more times. uh, this has to be program dot const. Oh no, const. Yeah, and this has to be read only. So we have initialized it the read only type here, and we are accessing it here is not an issue. But what if I assign a value to it? Here again an error. A read only field cannot be assigned to except the in a constructor. Yes, as I told you, this can be initialized only in the constructor. And one more thing is there, we can initialize it in the constructor or initial init setter of the type. That means if we declare it as init type, init setter we are declaring here, in that case we can access assign a value to it. So here I cannot. Again, we cannot assign a value to the constant here. We cannot assign a value to the get only here, and also not to the read only here. That means they all behaves the same. They are immutable. I'm removing this line. We are able to access it. But now, what about this underscore init? So can we assign this value here? Yes. And can we access it here? Yeah. So what's actually the difference between read only and init? I've told you the difference between this get only, this constant, and read only and init. And so at the time we are declaring an object. Here also we can assign the values to these properties. So can I access get only here? Not really. It's not showing any hint to me. Underscore const here? No. Underscore read only? No. Only I'm able to access this in it here. And can we assign a value to it? Oh yeah, really. Other properties are not accessible. Even if I try to do it intentionally, I'm assigning this a value. It's showing an error. Property or an indexer cannot be assigned to. That means, as I told you, this can only be assigned in the constructor, but the init can be assigned at the time of the object initialization. Here we are creating an object of this class, and we are actually um, defining the object, and we can initialize this init variable here as well. We can do it either in constructor or we can do it here, but no other const, read only, or get only property cannot be done here. One more feature with init is I would like to show you, but for that let me just add a new class to it. Solution Explorer. Let me add a class. Let's just say a new program in my application. So here we have a class. Let me just make it as a public class, as I need to inherit this class. And one more class, let me just name it as my program, and I'm inheriting this new program, this class. So let me just copy these type data to this. So I'm creating a constructor of this class now. Okay, and I'm going to assign values to these things. Let me just start with get only. Then the const. Can I do this? You need to tell me. No. And last I'm left with init. Control K. So can you see I've inherited this? All of them are public, right? So should be accessible here. They are accessible here, but we cannot assign values to them in this constructor, the inherited class constructor. This can only be done with the init keyword, and that's one more thing that makes the init distinctive. So are these accessible? Can you see? Yeah, read only is, const is, and const read only, get only. Yes, all of them are accessible here. Obviously, these are public members, but we cannot initialize them here. That can be done in their own. That can be done in their own constructor. Like if I do copy this, put it in the same class, make it as new program only, then we can. But again, constant cannot be. As I told you, declaration and assignment in const is done at the same time. No other assignments are allowed. Yes. So we cannot even assign these. This proves the point. Uh, this is not accessible because it's not public. No. A new program is inaccessible due to the protection level. Okay, will you remove this? So I'm repeating my points, and let me just show you before that. This is the get only property. This is the constant property. I must say const. Yeah, because they all mean constant in the different scenarios. Read only property. This is init setter property. Yeah, saving it. Let me just show you once. It's 100, it's 200, it's 300, and init is again then 100. Oh, first of all, let me just make some changes. Cut. Yeah, let's make this 100. Let's make this 200. This is 300. This is 400. This is 500. So the main thing is it's going to be 100, it's going to be 200 because it's never initialized again. This is same, never initialized again. But this init is initialized here and also initialized here, but no other place we can initialize it. Let me just show you this too. We are using this object underscore init is equal to some 500, and again it shows the same error that it cannot be assigned a value. I'm just removing it. And now let's just see the init will have a 400 value or a 500 value. Let's just run it. So this init setter has a 500 value here. Other are constant has 100, get only has 200, read only has 300, and this is 500. So the main difference is this can be initialized when the object is initialized. Along with the object initialization, the init property can also be initialized. The second point is we have to replace a init property with the set property. That means we cannot use both along. It will show an error. It's saying property accessor already defined. So either set or init. Only a single can be defined here. So it can either be init or it can be set. Get, obviously we need to access it, so get property exists. And a simple get only property has a get. Yes, we can access it like a normal member, but to access the const type, we need to really access it with the class name. That means it behaves just like a static member and it cannot be reinitialized. It remains the same throughout the application. One more major difference I told you, that the const is a compile time constant. That means that it's checked at the compile time, it's initialized at the compile time. This read only property, init property, these are all assigned at the runtime. So these are runtime constants. So these are types which these are the ways in which we can make these properties immutable. So init property has one more feature, that is when we are inheriting the class and we have a property defined in this class as init type that can be initialized in its derived class as well. We can really access it here, we can assign it here, and yes, accessing can be done because all these are public types. All can be accessed, but the initialization can only be done when it's init type, not a constant, not a read only, and not a get only property. So these are the differences. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Yes, thanks. यार दो जगह गड़बड़ कर दी. एक जगह तो कुछ खट्टी खट्टी स्मेल आ रही है बोल दिया. आकाश, खट्टी खट्टी सी स्मेल नहीं आ रही दही की सी है.